To break into top product management companies, most people think that you need a computer science degree or already need to be a software engineer. To prove that wrong, today we have one of my clients, Shiv, who comes from a finance background, who got his dream product role at one of the top e-commerce companies in the world, Shopify.
Shopify is over 10% of US commerce.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That's insane.
In this video, Shiv is going to talk through his interview experience at Shopify, his background, his challenges, why he decided to seek out coaching despite a ton of information being available online, how he did it with no prior product experience, starting from scratch, and in just a few months. As a bonus, he's also going to give us his answer to the tell me about yourself question. We have a lot to cover, so let's quickly get started. But before that, I want to share something critical. I know that paid mock interviews are expensive. If you are interested in getting much more affordable coaching in a small group, get your questions directly answered, and get access to high quality peers with whom you can do high quality mocks, then follow this Instagram account. This Instagram account has a very simple purpose: to get you access to affordable coaching. I'm not trying to be a product influencer. That is not one of my goals. On this Instagram account, I'll only post to inform you of upcoming session opportunities. Okay, let's get started. Welcome, Shiv, to the pod. Great to have you here. Would love to do a quick intro. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and just overall what kind of roles you are targeting?
Yeah, for sure. So first of all, thanks so much, Balaji, for having me here. My background started in finance. I was working in M&A as well as venture investing. I left that to join my family business, and I did some work with my family in our real estate and restaurant endeavors. And after that, I wanted to kind of transition back into the corporate world, primarily in a product type role. So I was targeting some early career product programs.
Got it. And before we started working together, like when you came back into the corporate world and looking at product roles, like before we started working together, what did you feel like were some of the biggest challenges that were holding you back?
Yeah, for sure. So I think from product role perspective, I had no previous experience in terms of how to approach getting a product role. I had no previous experience in doing product interviews. So I was kind of starting from scratch, and I had a lot of experience doing finance interviews, but those are completely different in terms of how they compare to product interviews. So I was essentially starting from scratch, and there's a lot of content out there for product interviews. And honestly, it can get pretty daunting, and there's so much information, you just don't know what to use in what type of scenario and situation. So I think that was one of the biggest challenges in terms of like how I was thinking and preparing.
Got it. And given that there's so much content already, like how was the overall interviewing experience or preparation experience like before we started working together, before you got coaching? Like what did you feel was working and what did you feel wasn't working for you?
Yeah, for sure. So I think I did enroll in like a prep course that I found online, and I was going through that prep course. But when I was kind of looking at that prep course and seeing some of the questions that were out there, I just didn't feel that I could easily translate a lot of those learnings into answering those questions. So I would do a lot of like practice mocks with myself, with some of my friends. And I just felt like it was a very forced implementation of a lot of the frameworks to certain questions that I was trying to solve.
Yeah, that's pretty common actually. One of the most common observations I've had in all of the coaching sessions I've done is this thing that I call framework on rails, which is once people learn about a certain framework, then they just forcefully apply it to every situation. And people forget their own thinking in the process because they're so focused on delivering that framework that your own broad thinking of the problem kind of takes a backseat. So that's something that definitely a lot of people face and something I faced early on in my career as well. So in this process, given there's so much content out there, like what made you decide to seek out coaching instead of trying to do it alone? And the reason I ask this is that many people often think that like getting coaching is a sign of weakness, that they are not able to do it on their own. So I'm curious on what your take is to all of that.
Yeah, totally. I think that's a great question. So For me, I was able to land a interview with the Shopify APM program, and I was essentially short on time to do a lot of my preparation. And as I mentioned, I was going through the coursework I had found online, but it wasn't working for me. So at that point, I decided to engage Ubology to help with running some mock interviews and seeing how I can better prepare and kind of improve how I was delivering some of those interviews. Now, when it comes to people thinking that engaging a coach might be a sign of weakness, I can understand how that could happen and why people might think that. But in my opinion, I think a lot of the coaches that are available, they have already spent hours doing a lot of the course and prep work around product management interviews that you might be doing. And most of them have very real world experience, and they've done interviews, like probably thousands of them, with different candidates. So in my opinion, I see it as like a shortcut to accelerate learning by engaging one of like a coach. So I would highly recommend engaging a coach, because I think it's just a shortcut. Like, they've done the work, and you're basically going to be paying them to download all their learnings in a very short span of time.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. So in our partnership, when we started working together, and you're like one of the easiest people to work with because you incorporated feedback just so fast, very much absorbing everything that I was able to share. And we were just able to iterate very, very fast. So that, at least that's my perception. I'm curious, like, what did you feel like you gained the most out of our coaching sessions?
Yeah, for sure. So I think there was two areas where I got a ton of value. The first area was how to apply frameworks to questions more fluidly. So there's a ton of frameworks out there in terms of how you should answer certain type of questions. And I think a lot of the times when people are answering these questions, they become too rigid. And as I mentioned before, they try to fit the question into the framework versus applying the framework to the question. So I think one thing that I really took away from our coaching sessions was how you could leverage different frameworks and really like think about a problem from first principles versus trying to just force a framework on the problem. So like certain questions might call for you to leverage certain aspects of a framework, but some of the other parts, you just kind of have to like think through a logical order of how you should answer it. So I think that was very valuable, and that really helped me.
Okay, a quick pause. I wanted to share something here that I think would be a huge unlock for you, but didn't want to interrupt his train of thought. This ability of Shiv to become fluid with frameworks and apply them in a dynamic way was a core part of his success and why he was able to find his role at the speed that he did. I can only do so much. The primary responsibility is on him, and he did that super well. Helping Shiv become dynamic with frameworks is something that I also consider one of my biggest wins. You've heard me say this in other videos. I really don't like it when people rigidly try to apply frameworks to a specific question without really understanding what that framework is trying to achieve. Super happy that Shiv developed into someone who's applying them dynamically. Now, his second one seems a little bit simpler, but is actually fixing one of the most important mistakes candidates make, which is to not drive the interview correctly. This leads to a lack of deep thinking and eventually making hasty decisions that end in a rejection. Keep watching.
And then the second part was just how to engage the interviewer. So, and when I say that, I mean, like, is it okay if I take a certain amount of time to like think through my thoughts and come back and provide an answer? So I think getting more confidence in being able to take more breaks to think through a certain problem and answer back in a more articulate way. I think that that confidence was super valuable.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. I do have something to share on all of this. Like, to anybody who's watching, like, if there's one major contribution I can make to your product journey or to anybody in this field who's looking to become a product manager, my biggest pet peeve in this area is what Shivdeep mentioned at the first one, which is people just trying to rigidly apply frameworks and try to fit the question into the framework. And my hope is that we can get to a state where you're using frameworks as a guidance, not as a script. Because if you do that, many times you'll just forget to think for yourself. So please don't use frameworks as a script. Please don't be so rigid on those. Be very, very fluid. And to the second point that Shiv mentioned on engaging the interviewer strategically, this is also something that I struggled with at the beginning of my career. And I see a lot of people struggling with this, which is if they think that they need about 30 seconds to think or a minute to think, they get worried that, oh my God, like, no, I need to keep talking. I need to keep the interviewer engaged. Like 30 seconds of silence feels crazy, very, very uncomfortable. And my 2 cents to you would be, it's not uncomfortable at all for the interviewer. The interviewer is also human. We all need time and peace to think. We can't communicate and think at the same time. We do a much better job of thinking when we don't have to do anything else, when we don't have to communicate. We can put our entire bandwidth to just thinking. And I promise you, 30 seconds of silence for your thinking, followed by a phenomenal conversation, is way better than no silence and a mediocre conversation. So if the conversation happens to be great, nobody's going to remember, nobody's going to remember how many pauses you took. It's just that the quality of the conversation is going to be the final memory of all of that, and your result is going to reflect that. So thanks so much for calling those out. I'm glad that I was able to bring those to the table for you.
Yeah, and I'll just maybe add on to that really quickly. So I think to your point, like the first time you take a 30-second break to answer a question, it's going to feel like the most awkward thing. And like in your brain, you're going to be thinking like, hey, like the interviewer probably wants me to start spitting out an answer very quickly. Right. But as you kind of practice and you take 30, 45-second like breaks to like really gather your thoughts, you'll kind of see the difference in the answer you deliver.
Yeah, no, sweet. Thank you. So from all of this, like I'm glad a few areas of how we did things were helpful. Like if you could point to one thing that you found the most valuable from how we worked together, like what would that be?
Yeah, for sure. So I think one of the things I really appreciated about working with you is you were super candid with the feedback, and you would call me out, when you thought something I said didn't make sense. And I really appreciated that because that again just kind of goes back to how accelerating how quickly you're learning and like the feedback loop. Mm-hmm. So I really appreciated that and really helped me to kind of get out of my head and make sure that I was answering things to like a certain standard.
Okay, hopefully I didn't do it in a too rude of a way. Sometimes like one thing I struggle with is I am not a very helpful interviewer in mocks. So I sometimes tell people before the mock or usually after the mock, like if you think I was not being so nice to you, that's on purpose. That's me trying to do my job right for you, because we don't know who you're going to meet in your real interview. So you need to work with someone who's being a hard interviewer to deal with, so that once you're calibrated on this level of difficulty, if you have a more friendly interviewer, it's just going to go much, much easier. So I've done that quite a few times, and I'm hoping that it helps in, becoming more comfortable with discomfort during interviews. Like when you feel like your body's tightening up and you feel like this is not going how I anticipated or another awkward silence is coming up, how you deal with those situations, it really helps in polishing out how you deliver answers when it comes to the real interview. Thank you for sharing. So before and after working together and kind of tag teaming this, like what was the difference in how you were approaching your practice sessions? Like how were you practicing differently before we worked together, and how was it after?
Yeah, for sure. So I think one, like I had gained a lot more confidence. I was more confident in how I was delivering my answers. The time that I was taking to formulate my answers was allowing me to deliver like better solutions and more articulate answers, and like having my thoughts more formally put together when I was delivering an answer. So I think that made a big difference. And then again, as I mentioned, cherry picking different parts from different frameworks and putting those together to develop an answer. I think those things made a big difference, and that really improved the overall kind of interview experience that one I was having, and I felt how I was delivering. And I guess to the other point, like the feedback I was getting for everyone that I was doing mocks with.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. No, thanks for calling out the cherry picking piece, because as people might see in some of the other videos, like I hate the frameworks word at this point because I feel like it's been bullied and dragged through the mud. Like frameworks started off with the right intentions, but I think people have converted frameworks to scripts. And I believe in calling it, or the stuff that I talk about, calling them a toolkit, which is they are assets that you can choose when to pull which one, and you decide your final framework by yourself. Don't take any framework and just throw that in. It doesn't give the signals that people are looking for. We'll talk about more of that in a separate video. But quick 2 cents to people would be, don't blindly apply a framework, like really internalize it, really understand what is happening in that framework, and then you'll be able to use it as a toolkit. And then when a question is asked, you'll dynamically be able to come up with, hey, what is the best framework to answer this specific set of questions? So there'll be a specific video on why you fail despite frameworks that's coming out shortly. We'll link that in the description if you want to check that out. That'll answer this question more deeply. Sorry for that. So I'm also curious to hear, like, in today's day and age, like the interview processes are changing quite a bit. Vibe coding is here, AI is here. Like in your case, what was the overall process for you like, and how do you feel the shift is there compared to before?
Yeah, for sure. So I think the incorporation of vibe coding in some of these interviews kind of came after I did my interview process, so I was able to dodge that. But the interview process for me for the APM program at Shopify was I had a quick HR phone call, and that was followed by an HR interview, which Shopify classifies as like the life story interview.
Oh, yeah.
And then I had a case interview with a staff product manager, and followed by that case interview, I was presented an offer.
Okay. No specific chats with hiring managers because this was part of the APM program.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So with that, it's different product managers, even the ones that you might not work with, could conduct the interviews.
Got it. Okay. And were there any like tough moments in these interviews that you remember from your journey where it was just tough, or maybe a moment that you felt like the coaching really helped you deal with better?
Yeah, I think honestly, getting the reps with the mock interviews and doing the different type of product interviews answering those different types of product questions is super valuable, because once you have enough reps, when you're presented a question, like you just have the muscle memory, and your body knows what to do and your mind knows what to do. So I think the same thing happened with me. I had done so many mock interviews and so many practice questions. When a question was presented, I was just in go mode. Right. And I was able to, answer the question pretty well, in my opinion. And things worked out. So I think the preparation part, it makes a huge difference. And when the time comes for the interview, like, you'll be ready.
Sweet. If you had to recommend people a ballpark number on how many questions you must practice to feel that muscle memory, like how many bicep curls are we talking about?
Yeah, so I think I in total probably did, I know we did like, I think 4 or 5 sessions ourselves. Yeah. So I would say in total, I probably did around 20 or 25 mock interviews.
Okay.
And that was a combination of coaching mock interviews with myself, and then mock interviews with just like peers. So it was a combination of those, and a lot of those mock interviews, I guess, also vary in quality. So like working with a coach is probably the highest quality mock interview you're going to get, and then you're with yourself, it depending on what stage you're at might be very low, and then peers might be slightly higher. So I think a good mix of it, depending on where you are in the process, will make a difference.
Cool. And then regarding the peer mock interviews, because this is an area that I've been trying to help people improve, like if you did, let's say 10 peer mock interviews, how many of them would you say were at a great level that helped you, and how many were like this person is just at a different level of evolution in this process, and so it's not particularly helpful to me so far.
Yeah, so I think out of the, let's say the 10, maybe like I think 3 to 4 were actually helpful.
Okay.
And I think when you're doing like pure mock interviews, you need to find people who are at a certain level to conduct those interviews. And yeah, because if it's like, if it's somebody you're doing an interview with who doesn't know how these interviews should be conducted, it's like garbage in, garbage out, right?
Correct.
So
Yeah.
it's like you're at that point, you're wasting everyone's time, and you're doing yourself a disservice. So let's say you don't have anyone to do mock interviews with, like in your peer group, who is at like a good level to conduct a pure mock interview, then coaching is the best next option. And yeah, so that's what I would recommend.
A quick pause and reminder again, no matter where you are watching this from, I want to share something with you. Low quality peer mocks are a common problem and they really delay growth for people. And paid individual mocks are very expensive to scale. So I'm launching something that will allow you to get access to affordable, high quality product management coaching, get access to high quality peers, and get your doubts directly answered by me. To make this affordable, we'll be doing this in small groups. TBD on the size of the groups, but the ballpark is it's going to be less than 10. Follow this Instagram account if you're interested. The account's sole purpose, like I mentioned before, is only to keep you informed of these opportunities. I'm not going to be posting a ton. I don't want to be a product management influencer or something like that. My goals are slightly different. Okay, let's get back to it. Got it. And if somebody's on the fence about this decision, like, should I do coaching? Should I go about it myself? Like, what would you tell them?
Yeah, so I think I'll just point to like my earlier point that I mentioned. Doing coaching is like you're downloading knowledge from somebody who's already done the reps, and it's like accelerated learning. So I highly recommend it. And I know typically, cost is a factor when we think about coaching, but it's like an investment in your career. So the amount that you'd be making after you've landed a PM role, or like the amount that you might be making as you progress in your PM career, is going to be nothing compared to like what you might lay out initially to do some of these coaching sessions. So I highly recommend it. I think it's a great way to accelerate learning and get up to speed very fast, especially if you have like interviews lined up. And like you might do one session and you might feel that, hey, like I'm actually very comfortable and I think I'm in a good spot. Or you might do one and the mock interviewer points out something that you didn't think about before. And it's an area that, might help you really improve your overall interviewing skills. So I would recommend it. And I think it's a great benefit.
Cool. Yeah. And to that point around mock interviews, like I'm currently working on something that helps people kind of improve the quality of mock interviews. We'll share more on that when all of that stuff comes out. So definitely consider subscribing. That's a shameless plug over there. Anyways, okay, I'm going to bother you with one last question, which is an interview question. I'm sorry to make you do this because you're not in interview mode. So we'll keep it to just one of the most important questions in the interview process, because it's one of the first questions that gets asked. And we all know the power of first impressions and how much judgment happens within the first couple of minutes. So Shiv, I'll throw the question at you, which is the tell me about yourself question. Like, how do you go about it?
So my name is Shiv. So I started my career in finance in the tech space. So I was working in M&A and venture investing. So through this role, I was exposed to founders as well as business owners a lot. And, through this exposure, I got really interested in entrepreneurship. I also come from a family of entrepreneurs. My family has restaurants and a real estate business in Ottawa. So I made the decision to leave my role and join my family to start a new fast casual Indian restaurant brand in Ottawa. So I was able to start that, from zero and grow that to 2 locations. And throughout that process, I really enjoyed kind of the aspect of building and just growing like this business. And managing folks was like something that was like a big learning for me. And the business got to a point where I didn't think we can kind of grow it further within Ottawa. And at that point, I also was kind of missing the tech space. And I thought that I could maybe leverage my interest in building and take that into the tech space in a like product-based role. And that's when I got interested in product management. So I decided to apply to different APM programs, and that's what led me to being in this interview today.
Thank you for sharing that. A quick note to anybody who's listening: pay attention to how Shiv specifically called out not just what he has done so far, but what his key interest areas are. And this is something we talk about in the CARE framework, and you'll find a link to that video separately, where usually whenever I ask the question, tell me about yourself, literally every time the answer is, my name is this, I used to do this, I'm currently doing this in this role, and this is what I want to do. And that's fine. That's a good starting point. But how we can evolve this answer even more is to first establish our character and our identity. Like, what kind of problems do we like solving? Like, who are we in the first place before you talk about the work that you've done? And you can see that Shiv did that in explaining what kind of areas that he's interested in and what drives him, what kind of problems he likes solving. That establishes the common thread in your past, present, and future, and allows us to see a direction of what do you want to do with your career. So if you want to elevate the answer to the tell me about yourself question, then there'll be a link to that video in the description below. And we'll stop right there. Thank you so much, Shiv, for joining us today. And we're excited that you're at Shopify and hoping that you learn a ton and make sure that the stock keeps going up.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Balaji.
Thank you. So there you have it. Thank you for tuning in. Hopefully this tells you that breaking product is possible from any discipline and in a few months, like Shiv has been able to accomplish. If you're interested in getting affordable product management coaching, join the Instagram channel and I'll share further updates there. Bye.